everyone, it's Erin from Sweet Spice Skip. After my first video, y'all asked me to cover bread. So here we are. What I've done is I've borrowed a book from my best friend that I know and trust. It's called Bread. It's by Jeffrey Hamelman. I recommend that you get this book if you're just kind of starting out your journey with bread. It is a little bit technical, but it covers kind of every kind of bread that you'd want to make, all of the techniques, and all of the science behind why we do what we do when it comes to bread. So today we're going to be making a bread from this book called Buttermilk Bread. The recipe yields 2 loaves, and I'm going to shape them into sandwich loaves and bake them in a pan. So this recipe does have a fermented aspect to it, which is kind of what sourdough is, but it's got a little yeast, which sourdough does not. So it's kind of a fun intro to fermenting bread instead of going straight into sourdough, because sourdough starters require a lot of maintenance and this one does not. So what I did was I mixed my fermented portion of our dough last night around 10:30, and then I have let it sit for 12 hours, and we're going to add it to our dough as soon as we get to mixing. It's very bubbly and alive. You'll kind of see where the yeast has started working, and that gives us a little bit of extra kind of tang in our dough and a little bit longer shelf life. So we're going to get started, and we'll go over mixing, folding, and proofing and baking in this video. So here we go. We're going to start mixing our bread now. First to go in the bowl is my liquid, which is going to be 1 pound, 2.6 ounces, or 2 1/3 cups of buttermilk at room temperature, and 2 1/2 tablespoons of water. Then I add the yeast, which is going to be 1 1/4 teaspoons of instant dry yeast. I'm mixing it around here with the dough hook just to prevent yeast clumping. Now I'm going to add our whole wheat flour, which is either 1 pound or 3 5/8 cup. And finally I'm going to add 8 ounces or 1 3/4 cup of bread flour that's been mixed with 2 teaspoons of salt. I don't like to mix the salt and the yeast together at the same time because they don't get along in the bowl. Salt will prohibit yeast. Now I've got it on low speed, and we're going to mix until it starts to come together, as you can see here. You don't want to develop it too much because you're going to need the hydration from your fermented dough that we mixed the night before. You'll see me start to add that in just a few minutes. Once your dough has started to come together, as you see here, after roughly 3 minutes of mixing on low to medium speed, you're going to prepare to add your fermented portion of your dough that was mixed last night. You can see that it's very loose and sticky, so be prepared for your hands to get messy. I'm going to add this in 3 or 4 pieces, just not so I don't overwhelm my dough with it. You can see that I'm doing that here. And then I'm just going to continue to mix once it's all added for 3 more minutes to develop gluten and strength. After the dough has mixed for 3 additional minutes on medium speed, I'm getting ready to transfer it to a bowl. You can see that the texture of the dough has changed since I added the fermented portion. It's starting to slap the sides of the bowl, and it's looking a bit more adhesive. This is a pretty high hydration dough, so it's a little bit sticky. So when you go to transfer it, be prepared to have messy hands. You're going to want a bowl scraper. I forgot to get mine out at the beginning, so you'll see me fishing for it here in a moment. If you don't have a bowl scraper, you can use a rubber spatula or just your hand, but a bowl scraper will ensure that you're going to be able to get all of your dough into the bowl. All right, everyone, so our dough is mixed and I have placed it in a well-oiled bowl, and then I plastic wrap the top so that it doesn't get a skin on it. This dough will yield 2 loaves of sandwich bread. So right now what we're doing is we're bulk proofing it, which means that we're going to leave it together as a whole dough to get active and let the yeast get started doing what it's going to do. So it needs to proof for 2 hours like this, but I'm going to set my timer for 1 hour. And then at 1 hour, I'm going to do what we call a fold on the dough, and that's going to build up a little bit of strength and also help to knock back some of the gas that the yeast is creating, so we get a little bit more flavor at the end with our product. So right now, I've set my timer for 1 hour, so I will see you when we get back. Has it been an hour already? Let's do a fold. Take your plastic wrap off of your dough ball here, and let's begin. You're going to pull each corner of your dough. I guess it's round. There are no corners. You're going to pull each side of your dough into the center. And this is going to, again, create a little bit of strength in your dough. And then you're going to flip it over just like that. Then you're going to recover it in plastic wrap. And we're going to meet again in another hour. I've allowed my dough to rise for another hour, which brings the total bulk proofing time to 2 hours. You can see that the dough is light and fluffy now, as the yeast has been fully activated, because I have the temperature at my house around 70 to 75 degrees. I've lightly floured my countertop so that the dough doesn't stick. You shouldn't use too much flour because you don't want to incorporate any more into your dough. It will create problems for you later. I'm dividing my dough in half and I'm weighing the pieces. You don't have to weigh them. This is all very rustic. You're more than welcome to just divide the dough in half and go for it. The book says that each dough ball should be around 1.5 pounds, but as I'm realizing here, the dough balls are going to be a little bit bigger than that, so I've added just a little bit more weight back to my first one. I'm going to lightly flour the surface again, and then I'm going to begin to shape my loaf. I'm going to stretch the dough out into a loose oval, as you can see I'm doing here. Pat it down just a little bit. Put a little flour on your hands so they don't stick. Fold the dough in on itself so it looks like it's hugging. And then you can either roll up, as I'm doing for this loaf, or you'll see for the next loaf, I roll down. It really doesn't matter. I have standard size loaf pans there that I have sprayed with pan spray. And I'm going to, after I shape both of my loaves, have those set up and ready to go. I'll shape this one, put it in my second pan, and then I'm going to cover my pans in plastic wrap and allow them to proof for 1 more hour. While my dough is proofing, during its last proof, I'm going to preheat my oven to 450 degrees and allow it to get to the right temperature before I go to put my bread in. About half an hour in, I'm going to put a sheet pan in the bottom, and then that's what I'm going to use to create steam so that I can bake my bread properly. After 45 minutes, my dough was proofed and ready to go in the oven. I could tell this because I poked my finger into the side of the dough and it collapsed, but had just a little bit of give. Right now I'm dusting the top with flour because I like the way it looks after it comes out of the oven, and now I'm going to score it with a razor blade straight down the center so that the steam can escape and it doesn't cause a blowout on the side of your loaves. Next, I'm going to steam the oven. I've had a sheet pan in there while it's preheating for about half an hour. I'm dumping water on it and closing the door. Now I'm going to put my pans in there and get the door closed as fast as possible so that not all of the steam escapes. Then I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes to check the loaves. All right, everyone, my bread has been in the oven for 35 minutes, and I'm going to pull it out. Loaf number 1. Loaf number 2. There's a couple ways to tell if your bread is done. The first way is to use a thermometer. For lean doughs, which is what we have here because we didn't put any eggs or sugar or milk in it, you're gonna temp it, and it's gonna need to be at 190 degrees, or it's really hot. You can tap it, and if it has a nice hollow sound, it's probably done. So now we're just gonna let these cool, and then we'll slice them and we'll have them for sandwiches. This yielded 2 loaves, which is too many for 2 people if you live in my house, but you can pop them in the freezer and they should freeze really well. Thank you again for watching, and please let me know what you'd like to see me do next week, or if you have any questions or concerns, and please post your videos or your final product if you follow along, and let me know what you think. Thanks again.